Well, g'day, Max here again. Welcome back to the shop. You'll have to excuse the noise. It's raining cats and dogs outside, like it has been for the past 3 weeks. So this is part 5 in our JFMT lathe repair. So today we're going to remove the cross slide, taper turning attachment, lead screw feed shafts, and that'll give us access then so we can remove the apron from the machine to just check out what's going on inside, resolve an issue with the longitudinal feed lever here, and just a general inspection. So we'll grab some tools and we'll start by removing the cross slide. So this is the taper turning attachment, and it basically works by this auxiliary slide which you set to your desired angle, and that is coupled to the cross slide lead screw. So as the carriage traverses up and back, it shifts the mounting location of the lead screw for the cross slide in and out in relation to how you've got this angled bar set for your taper. So this one here is in metric, which is marked for millimetre, or taper per millimetre taper per 15 millimetres. So yeah. So for every millimetre graduation you have on here, that will give you the amount of taper over a 15 millimetre distance on that end. On the other end, it's marked in ratios. So you've got a bit hard to pick it up. You've got 1 in 10, 1 in 16, 1 in 50, 1 in 25, 1 over 100. It's in a ratio over on that end there. So basically, to operate the taper attachment on this lathe, all you need to do is nip these down. So this part here clamps to the bed, and then that allows this part here to slide up and down this part here, therefore controlling the lead screw for the cross slide. Now, this taper attachment, it's off a different lathe. It's off a very similar lathe, as I've just temporarily placed an Allen key in here and just lightly nipped it just to take up because the gap. So we'll have to attend to that. And the mounting screws, although they do appear to line up, they're just a tad off. So something we'll look at when we remount it. So we'll show you the operation of it. So if you look at this area just here, so with it engaged, we still operate the cross slide as per normal. But when we go to move the carriage along, you see it change. So what you do, you've got your tool set up, engage your feed, you're travelling along, or you take your cut, you travel along, and it automatically draws the carriage forward. At the end of your cut, make sure you disengage, you wind them a fair way back, because they can have a fair bit of backlash. So if you suddenly start going back, your tool will dig in. So let's just check this one. And this is I don't think this one's ever been used, because I'm seeing no real backlash in this one, but if they're used a lot, they can get quite a bit of slop in them. So if you don't withdraw your tool a fair amount, it'll catch on the way back out. So yeah, when you finish using it, you just slacken off the 2 clamp screws and away you go, normal. So first part of removing it is we better disconnect our cross-slide lead screw. There's a collar, appears to be a locking collar on the back here. Slacken it off. So I'll take the screw right out. It's just a grub screw to lock it. I think I could have a brass plug underneath it as well. Bit oily, hard to grab hold of. Okay, and we have a thrust brace in there as well. So that, once we take the remaining cap screw out, slacken off the back here, she should be free to come straight out this way. Make sure our locks are slackened off. Pop our grub screw back in so we don't lose it. And yeah, it has a brass insert inside so it doesn't damage the thread when it's nipped up. So that's good. Right. Now I suspect this weighs a fair bit and I'll probably pop my poo-poo valve if I try and lift it. We use our new trolley. Just come up gently, just to take the weight. Pop our last screw out. I don't know if it's on dowels or not. And there we have it. So we'll keep that with that. We'll keep the screws together with it. The other thrust bearing. That's all there is to it. Okay. And yeah, there's some weight to it. Okay, with regards to the taper turning attachment, there's two types of cross-slide lead screw. There's a two-piece one, as what this machine has, which is the proper setup. So when I turn the handle, cross-slide handle, the slide's not moving, but you'll see the shaft come out here. So this machine has the proper two-piece shaft in, which we'll show once we get it out. There is another setup. It's more of a crude design with a taper turning attachment, and what you has a solid one-piece shaft, and as far as I know, I've never used one, I've only used the proper ones. You have to disconnect your cross-slide nut from the cross-slide. That allows the taper turning attachment to then control the cross-slide. So my thoughts would be they would be a total pain in the arse, as too much mucking around to set them up. It's like this way, you just clamp the locking clamp down into the bed, two cap screws, and you're good to go. So I'm not sure if this will pull off yet. I think it might. and it will, providing our shafts are able to separate. So we'll get our trolley under it just in case. Putting some packers underneath it because the lead screw hangs down. Gib strip. That's interesting. Show you what's going on there. Let's pop these compound slide screws out. Put him over there. Flip it up on its back. That all feels really good. So this lead screw nut has a wedge type arrangement. We'll bring you down for a close-up. Okay, that's our lead screw. So interesting to note, the nut has a wedge type arrangement to separate the nut. So it's quite a substantial sized nut. Oil grooves, it's got a diagonal oil groove running on either side. Now this is fed from here, so the oil can come up and come across the width of that groove. Same with the other side. This has an oil pump on it, a hand operated plunger pump to feed oil up to here. There is a bit of scoring going on there, as with here. Nothing that will run the oil stone over it and knock off any high spots. It's all pretty reasonable, so not as good as the bed weighs, but it's all pretty reasonable. One thing, something has gone on here because there's some markings on this nut. There's an arrow to the front. Yeah, some homemade markings on there. And the gib strip has been broken. It's been brazed back together. So that's a bit of a strange one. At least it's flat, or reasonably flat. Whoops, just about dropped it and broke it again. Wonder if that's how it originally got broken. Doesn't appear to be springing too much, so that's all good. Alright, so next thing we'll remove our cross-slide handle and we'll get to see the other end of the shaft. So this end here is keyed into the other end of the cross-slide handle. And that allows the shaft to expand and contract when the taper turning attachment is in use. Cross-slide hand wheel. Just got a set of cap screws holding it in place. Okay, so that has the drive gear for the coming up from the apron to drive for the power feed. Should have a captive key in here, which it does, held in by a pin. So this sliding motion allows the drive to still continue from one shaft to the other when the screw is being moved backwards and forwards from the taper turning attachment. So these can get quite sloppy in there, but this is actually pretty good. Okay, next step would be feed shafts and lead screw, I think. Now the shafts are anchored up the other end by a dowel pin. We'll just see what's going on beneath this cover, as they do have to come out from we may have to drop this bearing block off too. Okay, so we've got a thrust bearing here on the lead screw. There's a thrust collar behind here on the other screw, so what I think we'll do, we'll remove this nut and thrust washers, locking collar behind here. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to fit them through. Sometimes you've got to take these blocks off, sometimes you don't. So we'll get these removed. Okay, we've got just a locking collar behind this one. It's free. And a thrust race. I think I will take this block off, as it's going to make it easier to pull the lead screw through. Pulling a lead screw through a machined hole, it's quite a mission to do considering the length of it. So we'll pop this off, and our support here will hold everything in place. Okay, we've got ball type oilers here. There's these dowel pins again too. Now I've got to get these dowel pins out. So if I tighten up on this release nut, it should eject them, which it does. Tape a dowel, and the nut's missing on the other one, so we'll pinch this one. And out it comes, just a tapered pin with a releasing nut on the end of it. So this should come off. Careful not to lose our thrust washer. Yeah. Just a support block. Bronze bushes in it. Okay. Looks like a tapered pin in this end as well. That's that one. That one. That's our feed shaft free. Now, what I'm going to do now is engage the half nuts, and because I can't pull that out easily, and I don't want to go prying in there with a screwdriver, so I'm going to try and engage the lead screw half nuts, and pull it out that way. Okay, this one here, this is for the forward reverse. It's got an Allen key in it. Might be a tapered pin, that one. Let's have a look. Here's two. I bet you the small end's on the bottom. Let's just support it in there. We'll just give this a light tap and see what happens. No, it feels solid, a bit too solid. Now it's not letting me rotate it. Okay, we might have to disconnect the lever that operates this first. Just get rid of this threading dial so we can see what's going on a bit more clearer. Little stack of cheesy washers there, so it's another washer we'll have to make. It should just slip off. Pop that in there so we don't lose it. Okay, I'm going to pull this carriage stock shaft out and this front kick panel off just to give me a bit better access. It's got to come off anyway, so might as well be now. These are the detents. They're adjustable anywhere along the shaft. So there's a lever comes down underneath the apron and it kicks out the feed. Just an auto kick out. Okay, that should let us it's just a bracket underneath here, and this is for the forward reverse lever. There's another collar up here too, but it's a bit of a mission to get to. So we'll just slip this bracket off. Okay. Okay, so this collar appears to have a rather tight taper pin in there, which I can't, struggling to get access to support the shaft and to get it out. So we'll leave it on, and what we'll do, we'll slip out the lead screw and feed shaft. Then once we slide our shaft support bracket off, we can just drop this other shaft down out the way. So these shafts will slip out now. And lead screw. And feed shaft. This will come out the way. Wants to fight me all the way, this one. That's it, the control shaft. I've removed the foot brake pedal from under the apron there and the stop shaft support bracket, just to give us a bit of room underneath the apron. So what we'll do now is we'll slide our jacking trolley in underneath it, take the weight, then we can remove the cap screws that hold the unit in position. This has to come off first because, and behind it, there's some keepers up underneath, and they stop the carriage from lifting up. So yeah, you can't just pull the carriage off first without removing the apron. Now, before we go rip, tear, bust into removing the apron, there's a couple of things we've got to consider. First of all, this thing down on the end here in the middle there, or the round cover, that is an electric motor for the rapid feeds on the machine. So we've got a wiring harness that travels underneath the saddle, through underneath, comes out into this junction point here. So we need to disconnect. We'll pull this junction point off there and see what's going on. And this cover here appears to be the only accessible cover into any type of wiring carry-on. The other thing we need to do is to check underneath. So we're looking up underneath the apron just to check for any obstructions. Now what I see straight away is just there. That's an oil tube coming out. Now that's an oiler for the lead screw. So what we might do is drop the oil out first, and there's a drain plug just here. Well, that doesn't look good. Still showing full sight glass, and that's water. Not really what I want to see. And, that's more water than oil. So the sight glass is still showing full. So let me investigate what's going on here. So there's two oil reservoirs in this apron. One here for the lube pump, and the other fill point here for the main apron. And only that one drain plug that's doing bugger all. We're starting to get a bit of oil drip through now, but that's something, I don't know what's going on there. What I'm going to have to do is set up a bigger drain tray, and I might slacken off, where are we? I'll slacken off the cap screws holding that plate on and see if we can get a bit of flow happening and see what's going on. So you can see there our sight glass is still showing full. Okay, so we crack that plate off and we'll just let that ooze into a bucket. Just had to borrow the lid off the coolant tank off my surface grinder just to catch anything that misses the bucket. It's looking a bit festery in there, but we'll let it drain and see what happens. Check this shit out. She's slowly suppulating out, so I think we'll put this cover back up and deal with this on the bench. My God. So with our switch pulled off the side, we can disconnect what wires we need to, so we can pull the wiring harness through. Okay, so we have our apron assembly supported by our jacking trolley on some timber blocks, packers. So we can go ahead now and safely crack off the mounting cap screws. So we're getting some downward movement now. So we're jammed up as a dowel. So I'll have to just pull these two dowels out. Now, these look like, yeah. So I'll have to get a 6mm bolt and withdraw the two locating dowels. So they'll either come easy or they won't. Probably won't. You never know. That's a won't. So what we'll have to do is set up our bolt with a big couple of washers underneath and use our bolt to jack them out. Okay, so plan B, we'll just set a socket over the dowel, washer on top, thread a bolt into the stud, and wind down the nut that we have on the bolt, and that should, oh yep, something's feeling good. There we go. So let me get a pair of pliers so I can get our bolt back out, and we'll repeat the procedure for this end one. Okay, same procedure. felt good, whatever happened there. Cool. Right, don't need these, that. 2 dowels can stay there. Okay, so we should be in a good position now to start lowering. Okay, looking good. Okay. Just making sure we're all free. Okay, one thing I do see is that lubrication line for the lead screw appears to be squashed. So I don't know what's gone on there. We'll investigate that one. It's either this has been apart before and I've put the line through in the wrong spot. We don't know. So we have to watch when we come down that our wiring, well, nothing happens to it that shouldn't happen to it. So we appear to be free. Okay. This, what I do not like to see is this elastic on the top here. It gets in the oil ways. Well, so far everything looks good. I do have, I'll bring it down and give you a close-up of what I can see. So here's the top of our apron. Now this lube line here, which comes from the distribution valve, was the one that I said was squashed. So yeah, she's been pinched between the underside of the carriage and the top surface of the apron. Now I thought that was, when we first looked at the underside, we could see that sticking through, and I just thought it might have been a lube line to drip a bit of oil down onto the lead screw. But as there's no passage for this to feed through, I guess some banana just fucked it up. So we'll have a look down at this area here. So we have a distribution valve here. So this distributes the oil either to the apron or to the slideway as indicated. So this will be fed from the main plunger pump. And I don't know what's going on here. We'll have to investigate this one because it's possible there's supposed to be a lube line going up into that. So we'll see what happens. So we have a fair bit going on inside this apron. What I don't like to see is things like this excess elastic, especially when there's an O-ring around there. Now I can bet that wasn't done from the factory, so someone's had this apart and used elastic. My preference on something like that, when there's an O-ring, there's no reason whatsoever for sealant. I would put a bit of 515 gasket maker, probably around the perimeter, or a very thin bead of good quality elastic, but not shit like that. So that line that we saw squashed, I bet you it's supposed to come across the top and feed oil into this lot here. So we'll get this stripped, but before we do that, we need to remove the carriage. These are the keepers, front and rear, that stop the carriage lifting when it's in operation. So this rear one was hanging quite loose, so don't know what's happened there. Maybe they just forgot to do it up. Wouldn't surprise me. Now, the wiring harness that goes through, I've chosen to disconnect it at this junction box down here and take the whole cable assembly with the saddle. That way I can see how they've run it underneath when it's flipped over on its back. Now, I would like to change the way this is done, because I want to run a DRO scale behind the bed here, and it's a bit tight for room. So we might be able to get a smaller flat cable, something obviously that can still carry the current that's required, and I'll have to have a look around and see what's available. Failing that, I'll have to space this one out, which I don't really want to do. It needs to be sort of neatly tucked in under there. So we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I'll have to speak to my electrician. So yeah, I'm just going to finish disconnecting that, and then we'll bring the we'll slide the carriage down, or the saddle down to the end and straight onto our platform trolley. Right, we might have to bring this one to a close here. It's quite a long video, this one. So I'm very tempted the next video to possibly, we might lift the lid off the headstock and drop the oil out of the feed box and investigate the headstock oil tank and filter. And well, due to the state of the nation of the oil that came out of the apron, yeah, she was pretty sorry, but I think we've caught a lot of things before it eventuated into an issue. So see how we go. So anyway, cheers. Thanks for watching, and well, you'll see us, or I'll see you, you'll see me in the next video. Thanks.